Okay, welcome back. The first thing to say, I suppose, Limerick Leader Sport Podcast, video cat, whatever you want to call it. Jerome McConnell, Colin Kinsella, big week end, obviously busy one for yourselves, county championship. So, Jerome, give us your thoughts on what it was like to cover a game post-COVID, still in lockdown, not in lockdown, etc.
To be brutally honest, I didn't see a massive difference. Smaller crowds, obviously, but as I was saying to someone, game of hurling is a game of hurling, and once the ball was thrown in, there's absolutely no difference to it. Obviously, there's a lot more COVID-19 signage around the place and hand sanitizers at entrances and all of that, and unfortunately, the crowds are smaller. But actually, game of hurling itself is unchanged. Albeit the water break, and the water break is an issue. It certainly stops the flow of the game on 16 minutes. You could be just getting into a run, and I think it can stop momentum. Now it can also help sides that are maybe stuttering a little bit, and management get 60 seconds, 90 seconds to have a quick chat with them. But that's the one thing that I think for a game of hurling in particular is probably stopping the flow a little bit.
Colin, Jerome is used to social distancing in the Gaelic grounds long before COVID arrived on the scene. So what about yourself, who likes to mingle in with the crowd like myself?
I thought it was strange, Don. I covered Munger St. Paul's and Kildima Palace Kenry on Friday night, and players arriving in their cars, togged out of the car, open the boot, literally take out the pair of boots and put them on, throwback, old school, no dressing rooms. So, no chance to break a few hurleys over the table before he went out, or take the door of the dressing room off the hinges on the way out. That's gone. Jerseys on the pitch, warm up down there. The 200 limit, I suppose, all in between players and management. And there was in Clarina on Friday for that game I was at. There was some people kind of improvised, and two diggers were used as vantage points to overlook. So a number of people had a bird's eye view of the action. I personally, I think in Northern Ireland, obviously the capacity is at 400. And I think obviously, public health is number one concern, but if it was a thing that could increase the attendance to even 400 over the coming weeks, I think it would, do away with a lot of the headaches for most games. Obviously, as the championship progresses and the crowds and level of interest builds, then 400 mightn't suffice. But I think for the next round or two, if you could bring it to 400, I think you would be able to cater for the vast majority of the diehard supporters who would love to be at club games.
Well, Jerome, just touch on that point. Mr. Constantine, and excited Kilmallock manager afterwards speaking, I think it was the TG Carr, was saying, look at the size of the Gaelic grounds, we could do more. Granted, he's not a medical professional and we're taking advice from Neffet as it is, but there is excuse the pun, room for more.
Yeah, look, there's absolutely no doubt there is, but I suppose, from a government point of view, they're not going to let the GA go on a solo run or make, special exemptions for the GA. And look, yes, I know we're back at it 2 weeks and we're already finding, something to complain about. But let's be honest here, for 3 and 4 months, we sat down on Saturdays and Sundays and we had to watch games from the 70s and 80s and reruns on television, and we didn't have any live sport. I think we've got to go with what we've got. Yes, it's frustrating, and I know a lot of people that I would have met at club championship games that would spend Saturday and Sunday just going to 4 or 5 games. They can't get to games now, but it's the unfortunate reality of the world we live in. Absolutely, you could fit more in the Gaelic grounds. If you only put 200 into each stand and into each terrace, there would be no fear. But look, that's the reality of the world we live in. It's also maybe unfortunate that there's a difference between the jurisdictions in the north and the south. Again, I think it is what it is. And look, we've got sport back that we feared we couldn't. But I think we've got to make the most of what we have. And I found that from the 4 games I covered over the weekend, that I think from players and management point of view, by and large, they're more than willing to row in with the guidelines that are there and needs most kind of a scenario.
Well, just quickly, so Jerome, I'll stick with you on the field. People are saying it's a surprise Kilmallock beating the Pearse League, but look, you know, Kilmallock, the Pearse League and Partick Tyrrell have been the flag bearers for Limerick and Munster Club and All-Ireland Club finals in Kilmallock's case in recent times. Was it that much of a surprise?
I guess it was a surprise in that, you know, the Pearse League have had the upper hand on them for the last couple of years. It's 6 years, 2014, since Kilmallock last beat the Pearse League in the county championship, and for that reason, you know, you could see the celebration of the Kilmallock players afterwards, that it was, you know, it was a bit of a scalp for them, and a great way to start the championship. The Pearse League looked a little bit sluggish in the second half. Looked really, really good early stages when Kilmallock probably stood off them a little bit, but as Kilmallock grew into the game and brought more of an intensity, Pearse League just looked a little bit sluggish, maybe a little bit tired, or just off the mark in the second half. Not sure of what their, you know, challenge game schedule had been in recent weeks, but they just looked that little bit off the mark, especially when Kilmallock put on the pressure. You know, and you have to remember as well that they're down Shane Dowling. They didn't have Alan Dempsey. They didn't have Cathal King. You know, 3 very experienced players out in the field for them that, you know, probably needed someone like that to just put the hand up and calm things down when Kilmallock were coming strong at them. And no, all credit to Kilmallock. They've got a bit of a spark back that they were probably missing for the last 2 or 3 years, when, you know, I thought a lot of their guys had a lot of miles on the clock. But certainly in this game, they looked fresh.
Yeah, Cullum City Division there, the old school City Division, if you want to call it. Partick Tyrrell obviously winning as well over there. I'll get back to Jerome on that one. Monaleen, bit of a fight back there for a club that certainly have the numbers to do in the Pearse League on it and come back into the mix at this level.
Yeah, you wouldn't give much for their chances after 15-20 minutes on Saturday night. There were 7 points to 1 down against South Liberties, who were dominating all sectors of the field. Monaleen got a penalty which got them back into the game, trailed by a point at half time, dominated much of the second half, and ran out 6 points winners, and were good value for it in the end. I know there was talk beforehand that South Liberties had carried a couple of injuries into the game, maybe to key players, but Monaleen will be very happy, particularly in a very shortened championship. It's important that momentum you get out of an opening weekend win like that is huge, and you know, they take a lot out of it. They have a lot of I suppose younger players coming through. They have players who represented Limerick at minor level, and obviously Andrew Latouche Cosgrave and Larkin Lyons, who were on the Limerick senior hurling squad, which won the All-Ireland in 2018. So you know, they're building nicely, and it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. You know, South Liberty's facing a very important game now next weekend.
Yeah, Jerome, just to touch on the Wales win over Adair. Looked a bit dodgy there for a while, but pulled through like the champions that they are.
Yeah, you know, the experience of champions, I suppose, that little bit of composure. To be fair to Adair, I thought for, you know, 45, 50 odd minutes, it's the best I've seen Adair for the last number of years. Really, really good. Obviously led by Willie Griffin, probably the most consistent club hurler in Limerick the last decade, and just continues to dominate the scoring chart. 7 points from play, 7 points from frees. They switched Declan Hannon from centre back to centre forward from the start, scored 4 points, and you know, all was going well for Adair, but Patrick Swile just stuck in there. And you know, when you have Aaron Gallan, he hits 2-4 from play, you know, that gives you the spark, and bit by bit they just came back into it. Patrick Swile weren't, you know, by any means at their best. Dermot Burns, Keane Lynch, probably both quite-ish by their high standards. Loads of room for improvement there, and I think it was probably just the game that they would have loved for the opening game for champions, a good local derby with Adair. Adair brought plenty of gusto and intensity, so right good test for Patrick Swile. They'll be happy. Adair need to regroup and you know, reproduce that within a week when they face Doon the weekend in what's now their make or break game.
Yeah, speaking of make or break games, the nature of the beast is that the losing side will play the following week and the winners have a week off. Blackrock returned to the senior grade but lost to Ballybrown, so like vital for them then with their back to senior status that this weekend becomes even more important.
Yeah, and I suppose, you know, unfortunate for someone like the Rockies that, you know, they wait 23 years to get here and then they end up with 2 games practically in a week. And you know, Ballybrown would have been a big occasion for them, their first game back, with none bigger than playing Gary Spillane this weekend. And you know, what a game that'll be. You just time will tell. how having a game under your belt will suit the teams that are back in. You know, yes, Blackrock lost and South Liberties and Piershig in Adair, but having that game played is a massive thing for them, and you know they'll be hoping to put that to good use. But I think Gary Spillane will be one of the teams that a lot of people would be excited to see this year again, with so much young talent going well at the under-21s, and I think this will be a big game for Blackrock, and you know, it'll be interesting to see. But Gary Spillane are certainly one of the teams that I'll be watching this year.
Okay, well, we'll come back to weekend previews at the end of the pod. Colm, let's switch codes. Let's go to soccer. Fairview Rangers advance the FAI Junior Cup semi-final, where they'll play at Roy. Penalty shootout in Killarney, and this is last season, obviously.
This is last season. This last season, last date. So played on Saturday down on Killarney Celtic's impressive AstroTurf pitch, Celtic Park. The game itself, you know, finished 0-0 after extra time. I think, again, no more than with the hurling teams, the lengthy layoff from competitive action. You know, players probably not quite at their sharpest. You know, wasn't much in it through the 90 minutes and the extra time. Went to penalties, and Fairview got there in the end, 4-2 on penalties, and a really nice carrot now of a home semi-final in the FAI against Athenry of Galway, as you said, on August the 23rd. What a great occasion that'll be in the Fair Green. Big crowd, I almost said there, you know, but it would be a big crowd. I'm not sure. I think we're due to have potential change in you know, the next phase of the reopening, maybe on the 10th of August. So I'm not sure how that will impact on sport. Obviously, Fairview Rangers supporters will be hoping that it might mean that we might get to 500, maybe, depending. But that would be fantastic. But yeah, good win for Fairview Rangers. Not their best performance. They've had you know, they had been in terrific form before lockdown, really going well. And you know, it's great, I suppose, that these competitions, you know, they are able to finish them out, albeit, you know, we're now well heading towards August. So and then in the Munster Junior as well, obviously, Regional United B, who've been the fairy tale story of the competition, proved a step too far for them on Saturday. They lost out to St Michael's and Tipperary Town, and Aisling Anacotty flying the flag there for Limerick in the Munster Junior Cup.
Very good coverage online across all weekend with those soccer matches and the GA matches. One of the top stories, though, Colm, that went kind of, we won't say viral, but it certainly caught the national interest, is Dan Goggin, Munster Rugby Centre, is going to become a coach.
Yeah, yes, that's right. We broke that story on Friday evening. Dan Goggin moving to Richmond, Canal Bank, to become backs coach there next season. And I suppose he follows in the footsteps of Tommy O'Donnell, another story we had a number of weeks back, who is getting involved in the backroom team at UL Bohemians next season. Hugely impressive with BJ Botha there as well, and Cathal Sheridan, and you know, very, very impressive backroom team. But yeah, very exciting for Dan Goggin, you know, dipping his toe in the water with coaching with Richmond, who have, you know, they're obviously have been in IL ranks, and now they're back in, you know, back in junior level. But I know from talking to some of the people involved in the club, they're very, very excited about the appointment, and it'd be interesting to see how, you know, Dan implements his coaching ideas and his brand of rugby on them. And you know, will we see Munster backline moves being used by Richmond in the Munster Junior League in the coming season? But
well, yeah, he's a phenomenal talent. He's one of those guys who, you know, good underage hurler, good soccer player too, can pass off both hands, kick off both feet. So I mean, what a coach to get in, as you say, Colm, at that level. Just before we finish up, we used to call this the Colm Kinsella sponsored highlight of the weekend ahead, so I think we'll keep that going. Jerome, what are you looking forward to this weekend as the championship rolls into week 2? And as you say, some people have to feed up, and other people are do or die.
Yeah, it's last chance saloon really for the 4 beaten round 1 teams in the Piershig Adair, Blackrock and South Liberties. I think an intriguing game is certainly the Blackrock and Gary Spillane one. Obviously you have Piershig playing a hand. I just think maybe Piershig might be able to come through there. Adair and Doon is an intriguing one if Adair can re-find that form. And then the other one, you have South Liberties playing Maru Boher. all with something massive to play for, and that's the good thing about this restructured and smaller groups in the senior championship. But Blackrock and Garryspillane is a game that would have brought a big crowd. Unfortunate in the circumstances, but so be it. But as a game of hurling, should be an exciting one.
Just before I move on to Colm, what's the touch been like, the fitness been like, the accuracy of shooting a goal been like for the guys that have been off so long and for one of the most skillful games in the world?
Yeah, it's been okay. It's been a little inconsistent, and I think we've seen that from anyone that has seen games over the weekend, that we've had patches of really good hurling, but maybe because they haven't had the depth of training or the depth of maybe league games before, is that just not very consistent, that you're finding a lot of teams may be able to move 5 or 6, 7 points clear, and then they dip and the other team comes back. I suppose great players will continue to be great players regardless, and that's why you see Graham Mulcahy, Aaron Gillan, even the likes of Willie Griffin getting headlines, because they still have the touch, they still have the great feet, they still have the great wrists, and those three in particular would have shone out over the weekend. But in general, yeah, probably inconsistent would be how you'd call it. We have seen some good hurling, a lot of good endeavour, I have to say. I think because of the restructured championship, every game is really has something on the line. So for that reason, an awful lot of endeavour, but probably a little bit inconsistent, to be fair.
Yeah, for Colm this weekend ahead, plenty on again.
Yeah, I suppose an interesting one I'll be keeping an eye on closely is South Liberties and Maru Boher. South Liberties smarting from their defeat to Monaleen at the weekend. Which South Liberties will we see next weekend? Will it be the one who blitzed Monaleen the first 20 minutes last Saturday evening in Carrick-on-Laois, or will it be the more sluggish, lackluster South Liberties we saw through much of the rest of the game? They do have the benefit of having a game under the belt. Maru Boher don't have. So, it'll be fascinating to see this next weekend in all the games how much an advantage having a competitive fixture last weekend would benefit teams who were out, albeit teams that have lost. But it'll be fascinating to see. Looking forward to it. It's brilliant to be back at live sport. It really is. You kind of appreciate, I suppose, just how much you've missed going to games. It's great to go out, even if the weather is a bit miserable at times. But it's great to be out and about covering games.
Some things are constant. It's the weather that's there. Listen, my thanks to Colm Kinston, to Jerome O'Connell. Hashtag LL Sport on social media to keep up with it, and limerickleader.ie, and I'm sure another jam-packed weekend of stories and more awaits. We'll talk to you next week, lads.